course. Oh, what's going on, YouTube? It's your boy C Rizzy here. I was just going over the script of today's episode, and you ever watch one of those documentaries on, economic collapses, maybe even natural disasters? And some wise guy always says at some point in time during the documentary, we could have seen this coming. We should have seen this coming. Well, that's what it's like in this week's episode. So many signs that the season was going to be a failure. Yet many Buck fans didn't feel that way going into the season. How are we so blind? I don't know. Guess that's for me to find out. In the meantime, this is the Sunken Ships. Of course. In a league full of parity, it's no surprise that one franchise will try to copy another franchise's path to success. Now you may be wondering, what exactly is he talking about here? Well, let me tell you a quick story about the 2012 Kansas City Chiefs and the 2013 Kansas City Chiefs. Now the 2012 Kansas City Chiefs were a horrible football team. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs. For all you casuals out there, there was a time where the Chiefs were a bad football team, and 2012 was that year. They finished the season at 2-14, getting blown out multiple times throughout the year, including to, you guessed it, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, what was weird about this 2012 Kansas City Chiefs team wasn't just the fact that they were 2-14. No, not that alone. It's the fact that this roster had plenty of talent on it. They had 6 Pro Bowlers and players like Jamal Charles, Tamba Hali, Justin Houston, Derek Johnson, Eric Berry, and Dustin Colquitt. And that doesn't even count young up-and-coming players in Dontari Poe and Brandon Flowers at the time. So it was clear the problem with the Kansas City Chiefs was not their roster. So naturally, the one that got blamed for it was Chiefs head coach Romeo Crennel, who took the job as an interim role in the first place back at the end of the 2011 season, was fired after the 2012 season. The team immediately had their sights on the recently fired Andy Reid. Of course, Andy Reid had no Super Bowl wins, but he had tons of success in Philly. Went to a Super Bowl in Philly, made it to several NFC Conference Championship games in Philly. It seemed like the perfect fit for the Kansas City Chiefs to go from 2-14 to a playoff contender. And of course, it worked. The 2013 Kansas City Chiefs had more than 5 times as many wins as the previous season, going 11-5 and earning a first-round bid in the playoffs. Meanwhile, in Tampa Bay, the exact opposite was happening. After finishing the 2012 season with some hope and a 7-9 record, the 2013 Buccaneers started their season 0-8 and finished 4-12. It was clear it was time to move on. Now trust me, Greg Schiano's teams have a terrible story on their own, and I promise you, in later episodes, I will get to both of those seasons one by one. But for now, this is not about a Greg Schiano-led team. On the contrary, this is about what happened the year after we fired him. This episode is about the 2014 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very similar to Romeo Crennel in Kansas City, Greg Schiano got fired, leaving behind a very talented roster behind him. Now, this is a rare moment on this channel that you'll probably never see or hear me say again. In fairness to Greg Schiano, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were not as talented as the 2012 Kansas City Chiefs. They did not have 6 Pro Bowlers on their team. However, this team was way too talented to start their season 0-8. Proof of that is what happened in their 8th loss against the soon-to-be Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks in a game in which Tampa took a 21-0 lead early on the Seahawks, only to have it squandered away and lose in overtime by a score of 27-24. The 2013 Tampa Bay Buccaneers had plenty of young talent, especially on the defense. How about we start in the trenches with the D-line? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were coming with Adrian Claiborne, William Golston, and Gerald McCoy, who made it to the Pro Bowl that year. In the linebackers, they had one of the best linebackers in the NFL, at least today, and at this time was one of the best rising young linebackers in the league, in Levante David. Mason Foster was a good presence in the middle, and you had a good but not great Adam Hayward. In the defensive backs, you had safeties Mark Barron and Deshaun Goldson, a young, inexperienced Jonathan Banks, but on the other side of him, there was this guy called Darrelle Revis. Now listen, one of the things that this team did have a weakness in for sure was on the offensive side of the ball. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers relied on players like Vincent Jackson and Mike Williams, but mostly Vincent Jackson after Mike Williams went down with an injury midseason. To make matters worse, Doug Martin also went down with an injury in the middle of the season. At this time, Mike Glennon was supposed to be the future for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after moving on from Josh Freeman in 2012. And even though he didn't have many weapons, he did have one of the best offensive lines in the game at the time. Protecting the young quarterback that year were the tackles Donald Penn and DeMar Dotson, guards Davin Joseph and Carl Nix, and at center, Jeremy Zuta. So this would be the talent that the next coach will walk into. Like I said, not as good as the 2012 Kansas City Chiefs, but it was clear from reports from the Glazers that they were looking for a guy to turn the Buccaneers around as quickly as Andy Reid did in Kansas City, to fans themselves who said that this team had the potential to turn around similar to the Kansas City Chiefs. They were looking for a guy that would have been able to do that. Not long after Greg Schiano was fired, heck, during the season before Greg Schiano was fired, there were reports swarming around Lovie Smith potentially being interested in Tampa. And much like Andy Reid in Kansas City, this seemed like it would be a great hire for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Lovie Smith went 81-63 in Chicago. In the 9 seasons he spent there, he only had 3 losing seasons, including making a trip to the Super Bowl and another trip to the NFC Conference Championship game. And to make matters even better, Lovie Smith began his NFL coaching career in Tampa as a linebackers coach, learning under Tony Dungy and Monty Kiffin. It seemed like the perfect fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Glazers in Tampa Bay wasted no time in making their hire official. On January 1st, 2014, Lovie Smith was brought home, exciting Buccaneer fans all across the state and across the country. And listen, it was not lost on Lovie Smith on the tradition that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had during his tenure in Tampa Bay and what he was going to try to bring back to the current version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this quote: "We laid a foundation for Tampa Bay Buccaneer football. There's a certain brand of football that you expected from us, that we would be relentless, play hard, physical. But there was a brand of football that you would get from us each week in Raymond James Stadium. It was hard for our opponents to come in and win." So hey, you heard it from the man himself. He wanted us to play hard and relentless, and he wanted to make Raymond James Stadium the way that it used to be in the days of old when it was hard to win. And I had to admit, this was an exciting thing to hear. At this point in time, I believe I was around 17 years old. We hadn't been to the playoffs since I was in the 5th grade, I believe. It might have been later than that, but it had been a while, and I was ready. I was excited to hear what he had to say. I watched this entire press conference from beginning to end, and it really felt like, everything was going to be okay. Until the offseason began. The 2014 Tampa Bay Buccaneers offseason. Where do I begin with this? How about I begin with one of the best players on the roster at the time, in Darrelle Revis. Now, as all of us know, all of you know, Darrelle Revis is arguably the greatest cornerback to ever play the game. And that did not change when he came to Tampa. Many people may not know this, but he came to Tampa and picked up right where he left off. He had 2 interceptions, a sack, and 50 tackles on the year, and he was shut down. Trust me. However, Lovie Smith was determined to bring the Tampa 2 back to Tampa Bay. Now, for those of you that may not know, Tampa 2, or Cover 2, is a zone defense. It's what made Rondé Barber so great. Rondé Barber did a great job in this coverage throughout his career in Tampa. Darrelle Revis is a man-to-man corner. That's what he is. He comes up on you. Most of the time, he'll press up on you and he will lock you down. That's not what the Tampa 2 does. Therefore, Lovie Smith felt as though Darrelle Revis didn't fit his system. As Darrelle Revis was a man-to-man corner, Lovie Smith was running a zone defense. Therefore, there wasn't really a need for Darrelle Revis in his defense. With this being said, Lovie Smith tried his best to trade Darrelle Revis. However, Darrelle Revis was not cheap. He had a $16 million cap hit along with his name. At the end of the day, Lovie Smith had to release Darrelle Revis. So let's just be very clear. That's a red flag. Now listen, I understand how the Tampa 2 works. I know it's more about your middle linebacker than it is about any cornerbacks. And you know what? Even if they were able to trade Darrelle Revis for something, maybe then I wouldn't be so critical of this move. But at the end of the day, you cut him. He's the best corner in football. Are you telling me you can't make it work with the best cornerback in football just because he's a man-to-man corner? And listen, maybe I wouldn't be as critical on Lovie Smith in his 2014 offseason as much if the hits just stopped there. Here's a sign for another red flag. You know what's really important to an offense, especially an offense that was already struggling? Having a decent offensive line. When Lovie Smith came in, that offensive line that I talked to you about earlier and how they were pretty good in protecting Mike Glennon and Josh Freeman before him would for the most part, be gone. Ted Larson, Davin Joseph, Donald Penn, Jeremy Zutaw were all let go during the 2014 offseason. And who would replace these stellar offensive linemen? Would we go out and draft a young offensive lineman? No, that's not what happened at all, actually. Instead, Tampa would replace their linemen with players like Anthony Collins, Evan Dietrich Smith, trade for Logan Mankins, who was entering the later stages of his career. They would keep DeMar Dotson, who played as a backup the previous season, and players like Garrett Gilkey, Kevin Pamfield, and Josh Allen, who was a rookie, would all rotate in on the offensive line. So yeah. Getting rid of the best corner in the game, questionable. Getting rid of your entire offensive line, questionable. But listen, it's Lovie Smith we're talking about. I'm sure he has a plan. He's had success before. He is a defensive mastermind after all. I'm sure he knows what he's doing defensively. Okay, so let's not even worry about that. Offensively, I'm sure him and his coaching staff has several plans and signings that they plan on making to make this team better. So let's give him a chance and let's see the offensive signings they made. In the secondary, Tampa would add corners Alteron Werner and Mike Jenkins. At the safety position, Major Wright, who played seasons under Lovie Smith, would make the move from Chicago to Tampa Bay. And on the defensive line, they got from Cincinnati, Michael Johnson. See? There you go. Yeah, we lost the best corner in the game, but it's fine. We got these two corners, and like they say, you don't need to be a great corner. It's just a decent one in the Tampa 2 defense. Now, what did they do on offense? I know they had something cooking up. On the offensive side of the ball, Tampa would return Doug Martin and draft players like Austin Seferian-Jenkins and Mike Evans, who they drafted in the first round. Okay, not as many off-season signings that I would have expected for a team that was dead last in offense the previous season, but they did draft Mike Evans. They did draft Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Hey, Evans, Jackson, Seferian-Jenkins, basketball on turf, baby. It's gonna be real fun to see Mike Glenn. What? On March 12th, and also I should tell you, a lot of these moves that I told you that happened on March 12th. Josh McCown was brought to be the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's right. I said to be the quarterback, as in starting quarterback, not to back up Mike Glennon. No. They brought Josh McCown in here on a 2-year, $10 million deal for him to start. And you know what? It's one thing to do that. If you're going to do that and you have a plan to trade Mike Glennon and get some picks for him because you don't think he's the guy, maybe tank next year, whatever your plans are, then you do that. But tell me, when have you ever seen a quarterback that has starts under his belt get replaced by an older guy and then you still call him the future of the franchise? You've never seen that. Well, you've heard of it now because it happened in Tampa. I'm telling you that in 2014, they signed Josh McCown and they still named Mike Glennon the quarterback of the future and turned down at least 6 trade offers for Mike Glennon. 2014 was a different time, folks. But listen, it's cool. It's cool. Listen, Josh McCown went on a playoff run the year prior. He has playoff experience. That's why Lovie Smith brought him in. He saw what he did in Chicago. That's just the same reason he brought in Major Wright. Same reason why he would bring in Chris Conte in the future. Same reason he would bring in Tim Jennings in the future. Chicago guys, he succeeded under. And if he succeeded with them in Chicago, of course he's going to succeed with them here. All right? Right? So the start of the 2014 season is here. Many pundits are predicting for the Bucs to improve, if not flat out win the division in the year 2014. Hey, things are looking good. Well, kinda. I mean, we did finish the preseason 1-3 and only averaged 15 points per game in it, but hey, that's the preseason. Nobody cares about the preseason. The preseason does not matter. We had the Carolina Panthers game 1. And yes, most times you don't want to have to play a team that just went 12-4 in week 1. But guess what? Cam Newton's not playing. We have Derek Anderson week 1. Derek Anderson against Lovie Smith in week 1? I mean, there's no way he beats this
to the rookie, Kelvin Benjamin. Look at the first round pick.
Whoa, you got mugged.
It's rainy, but look at the defensive player of the year, Luke Kuechly, stripping it.
Oh. Okay. Listen, okay, we're fine. Okay, we lost to the Carolina Panthers without Cam Newton. Bad look, but You don't get to 12-4 in the NFL by one guy. So yeah, they lost one guy, but they're still a good team. We're growing, new coach. This week, we had the St. Louis Rams, and who's starting for them?
Austin Davis making his first NFL start.
Austin Davis? Okay. Last week was bad, but this is the week. This is the week that we show them what we're all about.
Davis's pass and caught. And Greg Zuerlein's kick is good. Up and he drills it. And the pass.
We have an injured player under play, and they are out of timeouts. It requires a 10-second runoff. The game is over.
And that's it. The 10-second runoff. What?
Okay. You know, can we pause right here for a second? Because listen, I forgot to mention some of the problems that the offense went through from day one. And I'm not just talking about the fact that Josh McCown was the starter. No, not that alone. Let's talk about the hire that Lovie Smith made as his offensive coordinator, Jeff Tedford. Now, Jeff Tedford, I understand the hire. He coached Aaron Rodgers at Cal. And you know what? 2 out of the 3 seasons he's been at Fresno State, he's looked pretty good as well. But with that being said, there were so many clear problems with this offense. They played the Carolina Panthers and the St. Louis Rams, and their defense, just like in the preseason, absolutely stunk up in the joint. So why after the first 2 games do you stick with Josh McCown over the quarterback who you say is supposed to be your future? Now, going back to Jeff Tedford, part of this is just unlucky. I mean, there's nothing much you can say. The man had to have surgery on his heart. I'm not going to say anything about that, of course. That's a terrible situation. Fortunately, he fully recovered. However, he did not fully recover until the end of the season. So that means during this period of time, we had quarterbacks coach Marcus Arroyo calling the plays. And it's very clear that it did not work, considering the fact that after the season, when Jeff Tedford recovered and Marcus Arroyo had a season of play calling under his belt, we went out and got this guy. But again, we'll get to that guy some other episode. Right now, this is still about the 2014 Bucs. And listen, the 2014 Bucs are 0-2, but they have a big rivalry game against the Atlanta Falcons. It's on Thursday Night Football. Let's see what happens. This is arguably the low point of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2014. On Thursday Night Football against a so-so Atlanta Falcons team, a rival, nationally televised. Everybody's watching. It's game 3 in your system, Lovie Smith. Instead of me talking about what happened, very similar to the last episode, why don't you just take a look?
Tonight, this time, Ryan waiting, creating time, and finding Harry for a wide open touchdown. Low fumbles. Mark Barry catches it.
You gotta secure the ball, buddy. Yeah.
8 plays later, Ryan to Julio for the touchdown. Jones had 9 catches for 161 yards.
Zone coverage does not work versus this offense, especially when you're playing
Josh
4.
McCown saying this doesn't work either. Picked off by Kamal Ishmael.
Right. He said, hey, remember when I wanted to sign with you in the offseason? Well,
yeah,
take
sorry,
this.
Take that one. In the second, and here it is, history being made. 62-yard touchdown on the return.
No chance. Yeah, no
his
chance.
20th of his career in third quarter.
Matt
Ryan.
Don't do it to him, Matt. Okay, go ahead. Now,
I mean, what can you say? This year is 2014, Lovie Smith. I mean, sitting in a Tampa 2 defense, you said it yourself. You had to have an elite middle linebacker to be able to sit in a Tampa 2. Listen, Levante David is a great linebacker. I feel he is an elite linebacker. Levante David is not a middle linebacker. Mason Foster is not an elite middle linebacker. So why did you sit in the Tampa 2 as Atlanta threw it over your head over and over and over again. This was one of the most embarrassing games I've ever been through as a Bucs fan personally. I've seen us lose plenty of games. I saw us get beat by the San Francisco 49ers 48-3 back in 2010. I've seen teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars put up 41 points on our head. I've seen plenty of games, but to lose 56-14 on national television in front of everybody, I must admit, watching that game, I had my questions about Lovie Smith right away. And who's that on the schedule now? Oh man, the Pittsburgh Steelers with Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger. Good Lord, what's gonna happen this week?
5 yards away, down the middle of the field, it is caught! Murphy inside the 10, all the way to the 5-yard line.
Oh.
Did he get it? Touchdown, Vincent Jackson!
Oh. Well, that was unexpected. After 3 weeks of some of the worst offensive performances you will ever see, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense came to life in their 4th game of the year at Pittsburgh. Explain it to me. Rookie Mike Evans caught a touchdown. Vincent Jackson caught a touchdown. And we even saw a big game from Louis Murphy. And hey, the defense only gave up 24 points this game. I mean, listen, yeah, you had the bad, terrible 56-point showing in Atlanta last week. But before that, you gave up 19. The game before that, you only gave up 20. I mean, if the offense gets going anywhere, hey, maybe you have a chance to be 3-1 at the moment. Big Week 5 game. The New Orleans Saints are hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams are 1-3, but if you look at the NFC South right now, nobody's doing good. Tampa just needs to have one big-time division win, and they can be right in the hunt for the division crown. And like I said, the defense is starting to come together.
Man run right here. Bam! He loves contact.
Oh. Okay. Okay, yeah. Not really the best look to give up 37 points to a team that just got blown out by the Dallas Cowboys, and the week before that only scored 9 points. Okay, well, we're playing Baltimore. Baltimore's coming to Tampa, our house. It's do or die time. We need this win to stay in the race for the division. And the thing is, believe it or not, we're still in the race for the division. All right, so at the end of the day, we need a win here, and we'll be right back in it. Joe Flacco and the Ravens, of course they're no joke. But listen, it's not like they're a high-scoring offense. The week before, they just scored 13 points. If we can get it out of their hands, force some turnovers, with Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson, this is anybody's ball game.
Hey, Joe Flacco. Less than 2 minutes in, it's Flacco to Smith again.
Same player today.
Now the Ravens just start throwing touchdowns to guys who were sitting like section 118.
Same play.
That got a Wake Forest.
Okay, yeah, same play. Other side of the field. Moment.
That's 5 first-half touchdowns, one shy of Darryl LaMonica's all-time NFL record.
Okay. Can we cut the crap now? Listen, I could go game by game by game by game and talk to you about each brutal loss. But the bottom line is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finished the season 2-14. They only won one more game against the lowly Washington Redskins by a score of 27-7. And listen, I could spend time breaking down what it was that was wrong with this football team, how they went wrong. But listen to these scores. 13-19 loss against Minnesota, 17-22 loss against Cleveland, 17-27, 13-21, 13-14, 17-34, 17-19, 3-20, and 20-3. It's very, very, very clear The problem was we had no kind of offense. But let's make one other thing clear. It's not as if the defense was only giving up 17 points a game and the offense was only scoring 6. No, the defense didn't do their part either. It was 2014. You cannot sit in any defense in 2014 and expect it to work. And you definitely cannot sit in the Tampa 2 from snap 1 to snap, let's say 100, and expect a team not to find your weaknesses. I mean, it's the Tampa 2, a defense that was so good, they named your portion of the defense after the city it played in. Of course, offensive coordinators coming into the league for years have done their part to find a way to find holes in your defense. It's okay to run it here and there. It's okay to run it a majority of the time. But for you to stay in that defense, that base defense, and for you to get carved up time and time and time again, it's no wonder you gave up 56 to Atlanta. It's no wonder you gave up 48 to Baltimore. And that is a big time problem when it comes to the 2014 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is Lovie Smith's stubbornness. Oh, and I mean his one-way stubbornness is clear as day. I mean, he had tunnel vision to the T. It was the Tampa 2 and nothing else. That much was clear. From cutting Darrelle Revis to cutting members of his O-line that had okay contracts so he could bring in players from Chicago or players that he thought fit his scheme, to getting 56 points hung up on him and staying in the Tampa 2, to giving up 5 touchdowns in the first half to Joe Flacco and still staying in the cover 2. And then if it's not just flat out stubbornness, it's just flat out nonsense. When have you ever, I said it at the beginning of the video, I'll say it again, when have you ever heard of a quarterback that is supposed to be the quarterback of your future, and you bring in another quarterback not to compete with him, not to back him up, but to start over him? Please tell me, when have you ever heard that happen? The closest scenario of this I can even possibly think of happening is when the Dolphins traded for Josh Rosen and then signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. However, it was clear that that was a quarterback competition, which Ryan Fitzpatrick won, which then Josh Rosen won, which then Ryan Fitzpatrick won back. Completely different situation. This was different. This was Mike Glennon is our quarterback. Okay, but Josh McCown is our quarterback for this year. Okay, but no, actually Josh McCown is struggling, so now we're going to put Mike Glennon in. Okay, now he's struggling, so we're going to put back in Josh McCown. That's how you get to 2-14 and one of the worst offenses that have ever come through Tampa Bay. And listen, one problem around this is Lovie Smith after this season was not fired. No, he would get an entire 16 more games before he would finally get fired. And to be quite honest, when you look back at some of the terrible decisions he made before the season even started, the terrible decisions he made on the football field, and the embarrassing losses that had during the season, it's clear that the only reason he did not lose his job after year 1 is because his name was Lovie Smith. And that's just a fact. Meanwhile, the players that were cut would go on to thrive. For example, Darrelle Revis would go ahead and win the Super Bowl with the New England Patriots that year. Jeremy Zuda would sign another big contract with the Baltimore Ravens, where he would be a part of a playoff team. A lot of the players that Lovie signed didn't work out as well. Mike Jenkins, Major Wright, both got injured mid-year and wound up on the IR. Josh McCown would never play another snap for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again, and Michael Johnson, after 1 year, would immediately run right back to Cincinnati. But at the end of the day, it was all worth it, right? At the end of the day, the Buccaneers went 2-14, and 2-14 meant one thing and one thing only: the first overall draft pick. And listen, after Lovie Smith, the Bucs had learned their lesson. There was no way that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would ignore bad signs from a head coach just because he had a big name. Oh,
Tampa Bay, that's where I reside. Say that shit with pride. I'm my city, I'm the best alive. I can't even lie.